Power Project family, how's it going? Now, we've been working on strengthening our feet for a while now, which is why we partnered with Naboso technology. These are the mats, these are the balls, these are the things that you see us standing on during the podcast. And the main reason why is because of the texture on the mats helps drive sensation and stimulation and blood flow to the bottoms of your feet, which is going to be super important as you're trying to get more out of your feet over time. The Neuro ball, which is what they also have on their website, is 2 different balls connected together, but you can smash your feet against it while you're working, while you're sitting, while you're chilling. These are all things that you can do passively so you can get stronger in the long run. Andrew, how can they learn more about it?
To learn more, you guys got to head over to naboso.com. That's Naboso.com. And at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 15% off your entire order. Links to them down in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I'm ready.
Let's roll.
I've been getting message after message after message from Greg Doucette.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he loves Bart Kay. He's a huge Bart Kay fan. He's signed up for the Bart Kay newsletter. And actually, Greg said he can't wait to come on the show to denounce the fact that calories aren't calories.
Oh, yeah, he's full on. He's going
It's
for
not
it.
calories in, calories out, he said. He agrees with Bart, and he's waving his flag, and he's surrendering. It's unbelievable. I can't believe the change in tone.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I know. It's been sick.
I can't wait to see the new cookbook.
I know. Yeah.
It's
He's
just
got to
like-
start all over.
Just steak, eggs, butter.
Wait, what's the title of his cookbook?
I don't know. I think he has a couple
It's going
different
to be
ones.
10,000 calories a day and how I lost weight.
Yeah.
The forwards from Bart Kay.
The amount
I'm
of-
obviously messing around.
Oh.
Okay. No, I thought he was going to come on here, though. But the amount of comments on the Bart Kay thing was kind of hilarious. And Ryan, I think Ryan's been doing a lot of the bites for Bart Kay. So it's literally like our channel has 9 Bart Kay videos in a row.
That's great.
It's like
so good.
People. Oh man, it's pretty
Ryan loves
interesting.
that shit too.
He does.
He loves to fucking poke the
He
bear.
doesn't mind to stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah.
I got to say, I still appreciate people like that. Like, I don't know. Maybe Bart's talking out his ass. Maybe some of the things people say about him's true. Maybe they're not true. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't really care. I think it's kind of cool, though, for somebody to come in and just say, hey, I think all this is wrong. We've seen that happen a bunch of other times, and we've seen it lead to, at the very least, it just challenges people like Greg Doucette and Lane Norton for them to really stand their ground and say, no, this is, like, people are, I think, double and triple checking their facts, and they're talking about it more and more and more. And so maybe when new audiences start to hear some of these nuances, maybe they didn't know some of these things. So I don't know. I think it's good.
Yeah, he
Thanks for the
definitely, I read one of the comments where somebody had said, it's nice how after you guys got going, you guys were all very sure how you were speaking after that point, because Bart kind of speaks in, what's the term, in debate form, like all the time when we're having a conversation. Mm-hmm. So he does that, but like for Greg Doucette, for Lane Norton, they can't slip up one bit, because he will jump on that shit, and he will find any vulnerability and go for it. So in a way, he does bring out the best in everyone in that like arena. As even if you highly disagree with what he has to say, he's just like I don't want to. Okay, so I'm going to use the word annoying, but I'm not really meaning it in the like normal sense. What I mean is, it's like, fuck, dude, like I have to make sure my X's and O's and my I's are dotted and all that shit, So I think on that sense, yeah, he's making sure everyone is keeping themselves in check as well.
Let's be real, dog. That shit's annoying.
But you know what I mean? Because I don't know him personally.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's like in actual like off air. But at least on the surface, like if it's like if I don't know, you're rolling with a white belt that just happens to be annoying, and you're just like, fuck, I can't let this guy go now. I can't let him get past this or that.
Yeah, the overcorrection of stuff can be frustrating, right?
When you're communicating with somebody and it's like, motherfucker, I know what you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I know what you know what I mean. I know that you're going after a single word I'm saying just so you can say, oh, but you said, like, shut the fuck up. Like, and no, I'm not saying Bart, shut the fuck up. But at the end of the day, it is very annoying to try to communicate with somebody where you're like, I know you know what I'm talking about, but you're acting like you don't know what the fuck I'm saying right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't even think that Greg and Lane have to be more careful because Bart admitted in the podcast that he's like, yeah, I kind of do some of this for clicks and views and I go after specific things. Like he goes after Lane for the law of thermodynamics. I mean, dog, that's why I asked, why does this fucking matter? It doesn't matter to the end consumer. The person who's trying to get results does not give a fuck about the first law of thermodynamics, dude.
If you're really heavy, if you're 40, 50 pounds overweight, you probably do need to work on figuring out a way to eat less food.
The only people that care about that are the people that are like, gotcha, bitch. Like, that's the only person that cares. And that's not the person who's really caring about the results.
And there's not like someone at home who's like 400 pounds is like, hey, I figured it out. I was eating way too less. I was waiting. I need to eat way much. I need to eat way more. Oh, and then boom, the fucking metabolism kicks in. You're sweating all the time because you're burning through all those calories. And now you burn an extra 1,800 calories every day because you're eating more food.
And you're not eating the salad.
Right.
Yeah, that's what did it.
And I think apple.
That apple.
The fucking peach.
That one peach is going to lead to... Never mind.
Oh, God.
So I do think for nuance sake, it's nice to try to know about, if we're going to call things a calorie and the calories work this way outside the body, it is a great idea to start to learn, well, how do they work inside the body? And we've had people come on here and talk about circadian rhythm, the second meal effect. Like there's a lot of different things that can happen that can kind of alter how your body turns those calories into energy, whether your body really is going to, use that source of food as like a quality energy source or not. Even like what they say, one bad night of sleep can make somebody their blood sugar can make them look like they're pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, how does your body metabolize food on those particular days? Those are things I would love to learn more about, and I think it could be helpful. But again, if somebody's really heavy, we need to get you moving. I think movement is the first place to start because movement by itself will make you feel better. Eating less food will not necessarily make you feel better. It probably make most things in your life a lot harder. If you just all of a sudden out of nowhere are trying to cut out things that you really enjoy and things that you really love, and you're having a little bit more output, that'll probably be hard. But if you just start to walk a little bit and you start to think about not necessarily eating less, but how do you cut back on some of the processed stuff that you eat, those would all be excellent places to start because those are probably areas where you do kind of overeat, but you're not going to necessarily miss those foods because they're not very filling. So you're not necessarily going to be any more hungry. So if you replace some processed food with some protein, you'll be more full. And if you are having some energy out over a period of time, you should be losing some good weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keeping it simple.
Or all they really need to do is just listen to John Anderson.
Deep cheeks.
And just not
Don't be a little fucking bitch. Go fucking handle your shit.
I send
Be a little fucking bitch.
I send these to Tom Segura all the time. I'm like, this guy's 50 years old. I was like, this is what you need to look like when you're 50. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
If he hopped on a whole lot of trend, he probably could get close to that.
You never know.
You never know. He has great genetics for that shit.
Anyway, I got a topic for today. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he had a comedian on the show. Was it Danny Brown? Is that who I said it was, right?
Yeah.
And
This show's hilarious.
what he said during the show, they were going back and forth on some stuff, and they were talking about like trying to come up as a comedian and how hard it is and all that kind of stuff. And they were talking about basically trying to have like a career while you're trying to go for something. You know, a comedian is basically an artist, an entertainer, right? An actor, we hear like the word starving artist, the term starving artist type thing all the time. But he kind of mentioned how he felt like you had to be rich in order to not grow up, in order to kind of like stay like a kid. And I thought that that was really interesting because I know a lot of people, especially like, you know, being a longtime power lifter, I know a lot of power lifters that like, I would say they never really like quote unquote grew up. They just kept following powerlifting and they kept following their passion and they kind of stayed within that and they never really went out and had a regular 9-to-5 job. they just kind of stuck with that, and they stuck to what they love. My brother is like that as well, where he's never really had trying to think of, he's had some normal-ish jobs over the years, but not many. He's a filmmaker. He's a creative guy. He loves that kind of stuff more. I'm the same way. I never really had much of a normal job, and I've always tried to just, I guess, pursue what I like, pursue what I love. There was other stuff that I could have done and probably maybe should have done, but I was always like, I don't think any of that's for me. I don't like any of that. And I remember hearing people say, well, it doesn't matter what you like you need to go and make a living. I'm like, well, I think I'll be able to eventually make a living this way. But I do have to admit, I've had help from my brothers. I've had help from my parents. So there has been other types of support, because some people are like, well, you have to make money in some way. And I didn't have money for a long time, but I did live with my brother, and my parents did help us for a little while when I was younger, probably until I was about 23 or so. So I needed some help from high school and then obviously, lived at home like a normal kid, all the way through high school. But yeah, when I moved out at like 21, 22 and moved to Los Angeles, I had some help from that time until I was around 23. And then I'd work as like a bouncer and just get like shit jobs to try to make some money. But not having money was never a deterrent enough for me to say, I need to learn a trade or a skill set that I don't love just to make money, so I can continue to do some of the side stuff that I love, and I can continue to, be a kid.
Quick question, man. Because at the time when you were in your early 20s, there wasn't like internet, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't social, right? For me, there was the internet. Like, there was less of a risk for me because I've seen people use the internet to do shit, to get stuff out there, to make money. But at that time for you, there wasn't an internet for that. So who were you looking at as like potentially a blueprint? Or were you just like, I'm going to go ahead, this is what I want to do, and there was no blueprint? Because like I had people who I was like, oh, they're doing this.
Christian Guzman.
There were people who were doing stuff.
Influencer type people.
Exactly. Like there were people who were coaches and doing stuff online, but I could still see, okay, they're doing well, and there's a path to learn stuff to do this. For you, was there anybody you were looking at like, ooh, okay, I could do that?
I didn't realize it until way, way later on. I didn't realize it until I already did well and already made some money. But I had a girl interview me for a college paper, and she asked a similar question that was like that. And when I gave it more thought, I was like, my grandfather and my dad. And they're like, well, what did you mean by that? So my grandfather had a used car lot, and he would fix up cars. And I remember as a kid seeing like it was called Shell Bell Auto. He had shirts, hats. He had like stickers and stuff. And
Shell Bell's supposed to be Sheldon Bell?
Yeah, Sheldon Bell. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Shell Bell Auto, and that was my grandfather's name, and then he gave that name to my dad. But my dad hated it so much he just went by Mike. But anyway, I never even knew the word entrepreneur. I never knew what it meant. And as I got older, I remember that word swirling around. And to me, like at the time, it really just meant that you didn't have a job is what it used to mean. And then it turned into this like cool thing where I guess you can have your own job. But I didn't really realize it as a kid that my grandfather was an entrepreneur, because he is somebody that served in our military, and he's somebody that then went and worked for the railroad. So he worked for like systems, and he worked within the system and did stuff for the government and stuff like that. And then my dad did the same thing. My dad played a similar game. My dad went to college, and then he was with IBM for a really long time, and he got booted out on his ass when he was like 40 because he just like cost too much. And so they brought other people in. They could have 3 or 4 people work for the amount of money that he was making, type of deal. And then he just turned and started his own business. So my grandfather and my dad were people that didn't have conventional jobs. And my dad was somebody that I don't think he meant for all 3 of his sons to never have normal jobs, but he kind of taught us at a young age that you can kind of, You know, you can follow your dream. You can do what you want. It might not be easy. You know, it might take a long time. But Mike followed his dream of being a professional wrestler. Chris followed his dream of making movies, and I followed my dream of being a fat powerlifter.
I mean, because you were around Louis Simmons so much and you watched him build a lot, did that influence you quite a bit?
Yeah, that was huge. And Louis just had like endless amounts of like, I mean, he just gives stuff away all the time. You know, people would come to the gym and they'd check it out, and he'd be like, "You need this reverse hyper. Your back is terrible." And he would tell a guy or whatever. And Louis would be like, "Is that your truck right there?" He's like, "Let's just load it let's just load that in the back." And the guy's like, "I can't afford." And he's like, "I'm not charging you for it." He's like, "You need this. It's going to change your life. I'll help you tie it down and everything." So he would pay for people's lunch and pay for people's breakfast, and he had the means to do so. Obviously, I mean, you can't just you can't just like make it up, right? But he, I think because he was so generous, I think that's how he got to be so wealthy, because I think he was always that way. I think if he had a little extra, you know, if he had the kind of guy, like if he had $20 in his pocket, he'd give you 10 of it. And he would be like, "I'm going to be fine. Like the money's going to come back to me anyway."
He was also generous with information, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So he's always giving out information. And I saw the value of giving out free information, because Louis would also spend a lot of time with people. And he would, you know, he would teach them a lot. And then the next thing you know, that guy would turn into being Buddy Morris, the Cleveland Browns strength coach. And then Buddy Morris would hold seminars, and Buddy Morris would have Coach House and Mark Uyama and James Smith. And like, it just started this kind of, you know, Bill Walsh's former football coach for the 49ers.
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
He has this giant tree of other amazing coaches beneath him, kind of the same as you saw with Bill Belichick and the football coach, New England Patriots,
American football.
Tom Brady, quarterback. Yeah. The guy gets to hike and throws a touchdown pass.
Since it's like the World Cup is going on right now, we should just refer to American football as American football, not football.
This brings up another topic, which is going to sidetrack us for a moment, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
A back squat.
Okay. Okay.
That's a CrossFit term.
It's a fucking CrossFit term.
Wait, where'd this come from? How did you guys both know this inside joke? What's going on here?
It's not really an inside joke. It's just fucking blasphemy to call it a back squat. It's a squat.
I personally have no idea where that came from, and
I think it came from Olympic lifting.
Okay, so I just know when we're around CrossFitters and they're talking about programming or something, they'll say blah 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 blah, and then we're gonna back squat. And I just remember being like, "What the fuck is a back squat?" And so I was just thinking maybe a step back lunge or something. And then one day I was like, "Oh, they just mean a squat."
You're right. I never call it a back squat.
No,
I never. Wow. That's fucking weird. So why did this hit you guys?
We need to have a whole entire podcast about this with Max Aida and Zach when they come. Zach Talander when he comes here as well, because it's a funny topic. My one of my friends is she loves CrossFit, and she was talking about a back squat, and my wife just looked at her. And my wife's like, "Listen, I can't handle this anymore. You always call it a back squat." And she's like, "Well, what is it?" "That's what it's called. It's called a back squat." She's like, "I know my CrossFit." And Andy's like, "That's the problem. It's just a squat."
When you type in back squat on Google, the first video that comes up is the back squat uploaded by CrossFit May 11th of 2015.
And that's some bullshit. That's some propaganda, people. It's just a squat. And then people are like, "Well, what about a body weight squat?" It's like, "Well, it's called the air squat." And what about this squat? Well, that's a Bulgarian split squat or a front squat or a whatever.
Back squat. Wow. Interesting. That is very interesting.
It's kind of funny.
So the way you feel right now is, I guess, the way most people would feel about like calling it soccer versus football. When it's like, why would you ever? And it's like, well, so that's, I don't know. putting it out there that's maybe what some people feel.
American football football is a dumb name for
a sport you play with
American
hands.
football.
Yeah. Agreed.
You kick it once, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
then
punt
there's
it, you could kick a field goal, you kick it off, or you can.
the percentage of the game that's played with the feet and the feet and ball contact is probably like less than 3% of each game.
Yeah, if that.
Right?
Yeah, no,
it
absolutely.
shouldn't be it's American football. And then there's football, the real thing.
The real thing.
Where you can only use your hands
When you're throwing it,
Yeah.
Or you're the one guy that can use his hands.
the keeper. Right.
Oh yeah. That guy shouldn't be allowed to use his hands either.
He should only use his
He
feet.
should have his hands behind his
Dude,
back. Use
it's
his
already
face.
hard enough. Could you imagine? It's like, hey, no more hands.
Well, there'd be more scoring.
You know, I have been
Maybe.
watching much World Cup, but Japan beat Germany.
Yeah.
That's actually something that's
Huge
pretty
deal.
crazy. You know, because Germany is like,
They're legit.
they're legit.
They've been legit forever too.
Yeah.
That's what's fucking wild.
And
Like
Japan
some of these
beat 'em.
countries are just good all the time.
Yeah. Apparently Saudi Arabia, I don't know, they won, and Mohammed Prince Salman, I think is his name, is gifting the whole team Rolls Royces.
Shit.
The whole team's getting a high-end Rolls Royce for beating a
Damn.
specific team.
That's
They
dope.
got a lot of money. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Got that oil money.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, hopefully people are still listening because
Yeah,
people don't care.
This is where retention just
Yeah.
went.
I love the sport. I don't follow it anymore. It just But one thing I wanted to ask you, Mark. So when I was starting to get pretty serious about photography, I can't remember who it was, but somebody that had made a lot of money. I don't think it was family, but they were just saying.
It looks comfy.
It's
does look
very
comfy.
I
comfy.
just had to touch and see his
Yeah.
like thing that he's wearing. It looks comfy.
Nice and fuzzy.
It's very comfortable.
But they told me they said what you should do is you should get a better job, make a lot more money, so that way you have more time to go back and do photography whenever you want. And I heard that and I was like, man, what if I ditched everything and just went and did that instead? Like, did anybody tell you anything like that with like powerlifting?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anybody really mentioned that. No one had any faith in powerlifting. And you remember, like, there was a lot of people that would actually say, and you kind of still hear it, like, well, I guess you don't hear it as much because you can make money in fitness, right? I mean, it's actually kind of pretty simple. Like, if you can figure out a way to become very, very strong, you don't have to necessarily even be the strongest. Or if you can figure out a way to get really shredded. I mean, if someone just gets down to a percentage of body fat that is pretty uncommon, you know, you start getting down to like 5%, 4% body fat, you'll probably have a huge following. And you're starting to see that more. But at the time, with powerlifting, people were usually pretty negative. They're like, there's no money in that. Like, what? I remember, you know, seeing family members and going to different functions and stuff. And people are always like, you're still doing that? Like, they were confused why, because there was no... But people don't really say that with golf. They don't really say it with fishing. They don't really say it with, you know, I don't know, if you played the guitar quite a bit, and it was like a side thing for you, you know, people wouldn't probably ask you it in what I perceived as like a negative, in a negative way. Like, why are you still doing that? But yeah, at the time there wasn't much of a blueprint for it, but there was Louis Simmons, there was Dave Tate, and there was people that were kind of coming through. There was Charles Poliquin, and there was a bunch of other people that were like that. I never thought that I would ever even be anything like any of those people, but I thought maybe I can make my own way. You know, maybe I can make my own impact some other way.
You know, the interesting thing about, okay, so you said Danny Brown on that podcast, because I haven't listened to it. He said, what exactly did he say? I don't want to misquote it, but like, what was it that he said?
He basically said something to the effect of, if you want to try to not ever grow up, like if you want to try to be a kid your whole life, you have to be rich to be able to do that.
Okay, you have to be rich to be able to do that.
You have to be rich to kind of be able to fuck around. Kind of what Andrew's saying. Like, if you got the money, well, then now you can go and, you know, now you can go, like, almost like, hey, you got to do your homework before you go out and play.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that though? It's like, for example, whenever you hear like a parent or somebody say, you need to fucking grow up, or you need to grow up, it's usually put it in the context of the way that they came up, like the way that my mom had to come up was, first off, she came from Nigeria to here, right? So there was that aspect, but she came here and the pathway was college to get a respectable job. For her, respectable job was an engineer, and then you work the 9 to 5. And there's nothing, by the way, guys, there is nothing wrong with the 9 to 5. Like, that is structure, right? You have the hours where you work the job, and then you have the hours where you're out of your job and you have a whole weekend. Like, there's nothing wrong at all with the 9 to 5. But with her, that was the structure for success. That was the idea of growing up, right? So when somebody says you got to grow up, they're usually within the context of getting a degree, getting a good job, and going about life, maybe getting a family and all that too. But there's so many different ways now for us to do stuff. And especially like when, as a millennial, I think my generation was probably one of the first that was able to leverage the internet to be able to do the different things creatively that we wanted to do, that it's very different. Like we got fucking hell, Owen, right, is making pretty a full-time wage editing videos at 20 years old. He's probably doing way better than a majority of 20-year-olds at his age, but that's only because of social media, the internet, and the kind of stuff that's opened up now. A
definite career where if he wanted to, he could do it for the next 10 years and keep working his way up and make great money.
For himself. Right. And he could do that for other people. He could leverage that out. He could literally build his own business based off of the skill set he has and leverage that to a bunch of people. And he's 20-something years old, right? So the interesting thing is, like, for us, we are pursuing the things that we're interested in, and now we have the tools, the internet, all these different things to be able to push that out to people, that now, like, people can truly have an expertise in something they really like, and they just have to figure out how they can somehow leverage that online, you know? And that's really cool, but it allows people to kind of never grow up, because growing up was like leaving the things that you find fun and working at something that you may not actually enjoy but pays the bills. But now the thing that you really enjoy could pay the bills because there are people that are interested in learning about that.
I would have a really hard time doing stuff that I don't like to make money. It would be really difficult. I'm not as structured, I think, as some, and so that makes it even harder. I don't think I was ever cut out to really do some of that. I could like work with other people and kind of for other people, but not for very long, I don't think.
Yeah, it is very nice to, clock in at 8, clock out at 5, and be like, I don't have to deal with this for the next whatever, how many hours that is. Yeah. I can go do whatever the hell I want. But for me personally, every day that I would go clock in or whatever, I just always felt that like I was meant for way more. And I'm curious if everybody feels that way. I felt that way when I was in school. Like I was like, this just doesn't fit. This doesn't work for me. I couldn't put my finger on it. I just thought I just didn't like school. When I started working, I would just daydream all day long about not doing that thing. It would be literally anything else. I would just want to be somewhere else. So what I'm curious is, like, I wonder if everybody feels that way. If they're at a job they don't like, they probably are more likely to think about where they would rather be. But even at jobs that I appreciated, I'll say, because they were super easy. They were very mundane. They were just like kind of the same tasks over and over, but they paid very well. And then people love talking about benefits, but the benefits were fantastic. But during that whole time, I always felt that I was not doing what I was put on this planet for. And I always felt like there was something way more that I should have been doing. But again, I wonder if everybody feels that, do they just suppress it or ignore it, or they just assume that it's never going to happen because, like you said, Nsima, they have to grow up, they have to pay the bills, they got to be the provider and that sort of thing.
I think for some people it is what they want to do. There are a lot of people, especially when you look at people that come from other countries, a lot of times they're really, really, it's not just people that come from other countries, but a lot of times in this country, that's what we see. They're very grateful and they're so fucking happy to have the job that they have. And I think they're just able to look at it maybe differently. And then also maybe their background, maybe where they came from, excited to have some of the other things that maybe the United States offers, where maybe some of the rest of us don't think of it that much in that way, and we're not as pumped. I do know when you go to other countries too, you'll see this a lot. Like if you were to go to like a resort in Mexico, the people that help you there, they are helping you the whole entire time you're there, and they're so fucking happy to help you and to just to get your luggage. And the same thing happens when you go to France. The same thing happens when you go to England. When you go to these places, and I'm not even necessarily talking about like fancier hotels and stuff, just the guy that works there that would normally greet you at these different places. And most of these places even have someone to greet you. It's a little different than here in the United States. Someone will come out to your car and they'll see if you need help. Those people are so excited. Like they don't want you to take your own bags. Mm-hmm. They really want to like hustle for it. And on top of that, you're not even supposed to tip them. When you're in Europe, they don't. It's a lot less common. You still can, obviously, but it's a lot less common. So I think it just depends on the person's perspective and where they're at.
Absolutely, dude. Because again, it's like all my aunts that are here, like my aunt in New York. I have an aunt that is a pharmacist here in Sacramento, another aunt that works in the medical industry. She's in the Bay Area. But all of them, they came from Nigeria. They came here. And first off, when I went there, like seeing kind of how they came up and then seeing the opportunity that they had here to work, it's like there's no way one can't be grateful, especially when like you see like how they did live in Nigeria, right? So there's a huge perspective shift when like you're given all this opportunity for education and work. It's like, how could you not be grateful and how could you turn that down? And how could you not enjoy this when, for example, my grandmother worked like she was kind of like a farmer, right? And she did a lot of stuff with she did a lot of stuff with like she was a seamstress too. So she did that kind of work over there, right? So how could you not be grateful for all the opportunities that you have here? And the meant for more thing, I mean, I guess I get what you're saying. I think one of the reasons why I can understand what you're saying is because I think it's kind of the same for me and you. I'm a millennial, and are you a millennial too?
Yeah,
you're at the cusp?
Right at the very
Right?
You
made it.
Yeah, I get to be lazy, right? No,
dude, real talk though. But I think what social media and like social media, the internet has done is like it's allowed you just to see how everyone's living and what everyone's doing. So before that, I would assume, again, I wouldn't be able to remember what it was like, but I would assume as an adult before social media, yeah, maybe you'd compare yourself to some of the people around you and the people in your circle, but you didn't necessarily have the capacity to really compare yourself to a bunch of other people other than celebrities on TV.
There you go. I was going to say not like realistic people, right?
They're not real people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it would like for me personally, it was like a huge sports fan, so I would hear reports about how much money these players get, and just thinking like, oh man, they just play basketball all day long. Like that would be amazing, And so that was the only really like inputs that I could think of right now that I was getting to where I was like, oh, wait, you don't have to like work forever. Like, what I mean? You can make money in other ways. But if there was like at Nsima Inyang, I would have been like, oh, fuck.
Or anybody, because most people are like posting stories of what they're doing. And then they're posting posts of them smiling by the Eiffel Tower.
But what I'm saying is it's like, oh, this is somebody younger than me in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And they don't have like a real job. Like that would have been weird. Yeah. Like I probably would have got super like envious. So in a great way, I'm happy that I didn't have that very young.
There's a scene in the movie The Tooth Fairy.
Is that the one with The Rock?
Yeah, with The Rock. I haven't seen it. And I don't know if you'll be able to find it at all, but like he basically just tells this little kid like how it is, like how it really is. I think the kid, is like, I want to be a professional just like you or whatever. And then he just gives it to the kid straight and tells him flat out like, you have to not only be the best person on your team, but then you have to be the best person in your area. And then not only the best person in your area, but you have to be the best person in your state, and not only the best person in your, and he's just kind of making the kid aware of like what else is out there. And I think before social media, you didn't really know what else was out there. When I played football and me and a couple of my buddies on the team, like, we had like most high schools, if they're not like really submerged in their sport, they only have a couple of guys on each team, whether it's basketball, football, soccer, whatever it is, that are like, really into it. Me and a couple of my buddies, we did stuff extra other than play football to be better at football. And so, yeah, we were pretty good, but we thought we were awesome. And that was kind of nice to have that, to be blind that way. And it gave us a lot of confidence. Obviously, we knew, like, once we started playing tougher teams, or we played like in the playoffs and stuff, we kind of recognized. And we also knew, like, we heard about Texas. We heard about the players in Texas and the players in Florida and the bigger schools. We didn't even have the same like system, because our school, in comparison to the schools in Texas, is so small. I think they would be like 5 Super A or whatever, however they listed. I forgot what they call them, but that meant that your graduating class might have had like 5,000 people in it. Well, if your graduating class has 5,000 people in it, then the talent pool is going to be
a lot bigger. Yeah,
a lot bigger. And if you're known for football or known for a particular sport, then a lot of people that are already good at sports are going to go there, or move to the area when they're super young, get the best coaches, and so on. And so we kind of heard about stuff like that, but it was easy to ignore because he didn't really know much about it.
Yeah, the exposure was definitely different. I remember my brother, he was always really, really good at all sports, but he would make all-star teams. And so it was like the best of, whatever the town's teams, right? They would get the one player from each team, and then they'd go on the road and they'd play the next, town or even state over. And I think that was the first time where it was like, I'm looking at my brother, I'm like, oh, he's the best. Like, no one's going to even come close. Or then we had like on his team, there was like a big home run hitter, and it's like, oh, this guy's going to just crush everybody. And then they'd go play against like a real team, like a legit team, whether it be Bay Area or even SoCal. And it's like, oh shit. Like, if those guys are making these guys look bad, like, who else is out there? Like, this is, man, it's wild. But that was the exposure we had. It wasn't, oh, let me check out Instagram. We had to wait till the end of the season when like the all-star teams were formed.
What's up, Power Project family? It's time to stop dressing like you're a fucking preschooler and step your game up by checking out Vuori Clothing. Now, I'm not one to talk. I wear a fucking pink hat that has a dog on it, but at the end of the day, at least my shirt and shorts are popping. So head to Vuori, because they have great stuff for your top and your bottom. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, you guys got to head over to vuori.com/power project. That's VUORI.com/power project, and you guys will automatically receive 20% off your order. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes. Let's get back to the podcast. It's freaking wild.
I was on a run a couple days ago with my nephew, and he told me, he was like, he goes, I made a decision. And I was like, okay. I'm like, this is going to be great. I can't wait to hear what this decision is. He's 9 years old. He's like, I'm not going to be a professional baseball player. I was like, oh, cool. I'm thinking, I didn't know that was on the table.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't really care that much about being like a pro athlete. He's like, I think it's too much, He's like, I like baseball and it's fun, but I don't want to like just play baseball all the time or any other sport. He's like, I like sports. They're great, but I don't want to like devote. I'm thinking like, this is so smart for him to like kind of be
very smart
thinking this way, but also a little sad because like,
reality set in.
Yeah, reality setting in. But then I asked him, what else he wants to do. And he talked about like writing. And then as he's talking about writing, I was just encouraging him like, well, if that's what you like to do, the more that you practice it, the better you're going to be at it, And so, and then he started telling me about this story that he wrote, and the story was fucking amazing. I'm like, this is like, I thought he was going to like just give me like a couple sentences on some fairy tale thing that he halfway wrote or something.
And he pitched you a whole script.
Holy shit. He pitched me a whole script. And so he said he's like working on it. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's interesting how that kind of plays out within yourself as you're getting older, to kind of like see where you're gonna land. But for me, that was pushed way, way off until I was like, I don't know, I'm still figuring it out.
Wait, what was pushed off?
Just like maybe not, maybe settling into like a real uniform position, because like I still don't really want to settle into anything. I still want to just continue to, I guess, like be a kid in a way and really explore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just keep doing different shit, I guess.
You know what's pretty interesting too? Did you guys, both of you guys, like the people around you, friends, family, did you guys get a lot of encouragement for the things you were heading down? Like some of the things you're doing now, like were people encouraging you, or were there people like, you need to hurry up and get a real job? You need to, I mean, especially because like you had kids before the slingshot took off, right? You had Quinn and Jake before the slingshot.
I had Jake.
You had Jake, right? But did you have people that were kind of saying you need to you need to quit this and head towards something else, or were people encouraging you? Because that's a pretty big deal.
There was a little mix of both, I guess, but for the most part, for people that knew me less, there was a lot less support, and for people that I think most people just never had any clue what I was going to do, whether it be my brother or whether it be my wife. My wife was even like, I think,
damn, that's trust.
she was like, I think you need to get a job, you need to get like more of like a steady income. Cause I had jobs, but they weren't great and they didn't pay much. And so, she was, and I got fortunate with that as well, because my wife was the breadwinner for the family for, many years. So there's situations in my life that like afforded me to go to the gym and spend the time that I spent there, without making a lot of money. So I didn't need to make a lot. I just needed to like make something. But yeah, I think from a support perspective, there was enough support initially from like my parents, from the time I was really young, to have enough confidence in myself to just kind of ignore how supportive people were or weren't.
I think that's a pretty big deal, because there's a side of things where you do need people around you. Like you do need friends that will call you on shit. So if you do have a dream, and there's nothing wrong with having a dream of something, and let's say you are taking action, but let's just say the dream, is like, it's not panning out, right? It's really not panning out. And maybe it's like, it is to the level of like literally being like, ooh, if you're lucky, like if you're super fucking lucky, like there's no chance. Like you're doing it over and over and you're not progressing. You do need people that are going to call you and be like, okay, you need a course correct, or maybe you need to shift a little bit. But
maybe a lateral move rather than like a big giant step forward.
Because you probably know people that come to mind that it's like you see they've been banging their head on something for years, and even in your mind you're like, you need to switch up, buddy. You need to switch up. So you do need people like that. But like I would say I was very lucky, because my mom, coming from where she came from, like dropping out of college as an African kid is not good. Like you don't like when I did drop out and some of my family found out about it later, everyone was like messaging her and calling her like, what's your son doing? Well, what is your son doing?
Probably like I always knew he was going to be a fuck up.
Actually,
here it comes.
The exact opposite. Like you stress yourself out so much, and now your son drops out of college. Huh? Like they were really banging it down, trying to have her like, he needs to get back in school. He can't come to this country and fail. But it was wild, because she was like, he's got a good head on his shoulders. Like
if you think about it, your mom, the whole reason for the family moving here and everything that she worked for was to give you that amount of breathing room to figure your own shit out, give you the freedom.
Yeah, but there was a massive level of trust on her end, because I know a lot of African families, and if there's
that's a lot of pressure.
If there's any kid who leaves school or tries to go for something else, like me, like the family is like, what the fuck are you doing? Like it doesn't make sense in the culture, right? But she was actually like, as long as you have a plan, right? I trust that you'll be okay. And she was super supportive, and that was a really big deal to me, because she's the only parent I had, right? So if the only parent I had that raised me my whole life was like, you can't fucking do this, go like, I don't know if I would have continued heading down that road if I didn't have a level of her support, because she raised me, right? So I think that is huge if you're a parent and you do have a kid that's trying trying to do things that's outside of the general box of what you see, you do have, some kids just like, they won't pay any attention to what their parents say, but some kids really will pay attention. And if you're a parent and you massively discourage your kid from going the route of something creative, even though it's probably from a side of, I care for what you're doing and I'm trying to not have you fail, you could either help them like not go towards their dreams and go a normal route, or you could help them achieve some really cool shit towards their dreams. You know,
I think you do want to have a plan. I think that's a critical thing, is at least having, do you have a plan, or are you currently working on stuff? So for me, I could always say like, well, I was at the very least always working on like my body. I was working on my strength. I was working on, learning more about nutrition. I mean, I've read, all these different books and all this different crap, and went to seminars and really submerged myself in this stuff to where I thought about it day and night for many, many years. And then being in powerlifting is not the way that I was in powerlifting is not too much different than the way that you see people like in MMA now. Like they're in the gym the whole day. That's what I was. I was in my gym the entire day. If I wasn't in my gym, I was in Jesse Burdick's gym. We talked about the squat. We talked about the deadlift. We talked about the bench. Oh, I wonder if you had this grip. I wonder about this stance. I wonder, what if we wore these shoes? What if we tried this method? What if we did everything that you could think of, everything that we could think of at the time. We used bands and chains and all this different stuff. We even had somebody that that hooked bands up to the bar, and the bands were able to like pull off in between each set because this guy made like this hydraulic fucking thing. It was too dangerous and it didn't work. But like we literally tried to think of everything. That's where our minds were. That's where the fascination was. And for some people that were around at those times, like Chris Duffin comes to mind. Chris Duffin had a more 9-to-5 job, and he did that simultaneously while building himself up and building up his knowledge in strength training, building up his knowledge as a power lifter. And he's always someone that was tinkering with stuff. He was always like an inventor. And so I think you kind of need like some sort of plan. You definitely need action. You need to have action. And then there might be like a lot of like lateral moves that you might need to make. For me, like things weren't working out great, but Andy and I decided to start Power Magazine. I didn't really know exactly what that would do, but that hit upon the thing that I loved in the first place, which was being able to share information with people and being able to get people excited about powerlifting, the sport that I loved. I was already shooting the YouTube videos. I didn't know what those were for or what those were doing. But again, those made me feel good because it was the same thing. I was able to deliver a message to people, and I was able to, become like a material expert within a certain space. And I think I just always thought that it would just work out to be able to leverage this at some point for something, to be able to monetize it in some way, because my mentor, Louis Simmons, did something similar. And so I just kind of kept my spirits up the best I could. Not every day was easy. There was a lot of days where my shitty car would break down and I would be smashed across the head with reality. And there would be days where I would just also, set a PR in the gym where I was like, I'm on to something. Like this is something. Like this is cool. But I think people on the outside were like, well, I don't understand. Like what's it matter if you got a PR in your 2-board bench press? Like, you don't understand. I've been working on this for so long. This is like a thing. Like I got like a recipe going here. And so it wasn't always easy to kind of to stick with it, but that's what I wanted to do.
You know what's interesting though? It's like from what you just mentioned, like, yeah, that's what you wanted to do. And a lot of the messaging that people get as far as like, I guess, entrepreneurship and starting your business and all this shit is like, it all comes down to you, your decisions and your grind, right? I always use the word your grind. But I think a cool thing is that we can all acknowledge that a lot of where we are and what we're doing is a lot because of the support of the people around us. You know what I mean? It's like there is a lot of like, you were keeping your nose to the grindstone in terms of what you wanted to do. Like you were staying focused, but there was people that were also like, hey, supporting that goal that you had. And for me, me and my mom were talking about this the other day, and it's like one of the big reasons why I wasn't, and I didn't get my head in a lot of bullshit like partying, drugs, and drinking, because there are a lot of people that are close to me who did, is partially because, first off, she put me in sports when I was younger. And then when I wasn't playing sports, I was in the gym, right? And for me, stress relief and anxiety relief came from using my body. I learned that habit when I was young, so that when I became an adult, with any stress that happened to me, with anything that I was doing, it was just like, go fucking run it out, go work it out, and then come back to what you're doing. Rather than, let me just drink a bunch, or let me go fucking find some people to go party and fuck, right? That I just didn't waste my time with a lot of bullshit because of the childhood habits that were cemented of being physical. And that allowed me to go down the road long enough to be able to come across some cool people to continue to build shit with, right? Because if I didn't have had those bad habits, I wouldn't have ever come across this gym. A lot of things wouldn't have happened because I would have had bad habits because of the habits my mom set in from childhood. That's a big deal. And that is a privilege in a sense. Even though she was a single mother, it was a privilege that she cemented those tools that were huge in adulthood.
Was that ever hard? Like, did you ever feel like left out because you maybe didn't go to parties or you would hear stuff from friends about what they did and you weren't part of that, so maybe you weren't.
I went to a few parties in college and it wasn't fun for me though.
Mm-hmm.
I
like awkward kind of.
I've been drunk a few times. One of the times I got drunk, I woke up in the hospital the next day. Like my few times getting drunk and having a hangover, I didn't like the feeling of having a hangover. Partially because I knew what it felt like to feel really good, right? Like I knew what it was like to feel good from working out and using my body, where like now you have a hangover and you feel like shit all day, you go to the gym and you fucking feel weak. Because of those experiences, the feeling of alcohol was not fun for me. The parties and staying up super late was not fun for me because habits from childhood of using your body at a high level, it doesn't feel right. So even though I did some of that stuff, I didn't find it rewarding at all. And again, if I didn't have those habits though, I feel like that would have been super fun for me. I would have found that super rewarding and I would have been into that. But luckily, because of the habits, I wasn't.
I guess if you think about it, a big thing that separates kids out from adults is movement. Kids move a lot. I've talked about this many times on the show. 5-year-old kid, pop out of the car, and you got to really pay attention because they might run right across the street. I mean, hopefully you've taught them enough about that and they don't do that, but they want to run and jump and turn everything into a game. And even the smallest thing, like just them getting up from sitting in front of the television. First of all, they're on the ground, they're all bendy and weird, and their feet are all in weird spots, and their bodies are all contorted and stuff. And then the next second, they'll just like pop right up, and they'll run over to, hug their grandma or whatever. And then they'll go and sprint and dive back onto the couch. Almost like a dog, like when you have someone new over the house, your dog goes crazy and like keeps running around in circles and going all fired up like a little
got
kid.
That golden retriever energy.
Yeah, little kid, man. They'll be cruising around like that all the time. But as we get to be older, a lot of times we don't have that in us anymore. I think a lot of it has to do with what you mentioned about how you mitigate your stress. That's a huge part of it. But I also think that the way that you feel physically, the accumulation of, first of all, having distance between you and like the last time you played soccer or football, like that's going to make you not feel as good as you did when you were a kid because you're always in movement, you're in constant motion as a kid. Then you turn 10, and between 10 and like 15, unless you're playing a sport, you might not move around that much. Or when you're done with sports, which is usually like 18, 19, and now you're 35, you stop moving for a long period of time. Even if you lift, you stop some of the athletic movements. And so even something like picking something up off the ground, you might not be as enthusiastic about it because you're not moving as much because your body's stiff. And so these things over a period of time, they really accumulate. But if you look at one of the big difference between when we're talking about like growing up, like I don't want to ever grow up. I want to always try to keep moving every single day. I want to be a little bit like a little kid and keep. When I was running yesterday, I got to mile 5 and I was like, holy fuck, this feels amazing. I'm like, this is, and I was also thinking, I'm like, okay, well, a lot of times when you get to around here, when you get towards the end, you kind of are like you lost it. You lost the. It's like losing your pump when you lift. You get the pump and you're like, this is fucking great. I got to ride this pump out. And then sometimes the pump disappears. And you're like, I don't know what the heck. Yeah. You're like, I don't know what happened. And you keep trying to make it come back, but it's gone. Like it's gone. It's over. That section of the workout is over. And I've had that happen with running a bunch of times where you hit this like runner's high. You feel really good. And then all of a sudden it kind of like dissipates. And now you're just left with the last 2 miles or so. Well, this just kept on going. I felt better and better as I was going. And I felt like a little kid. And the whole time I kept running with different styles and different ways and running across the street and jumping up on top of stuff and fucking cruising around. It felt amazing. And I was just thinking like, how cool is this to be able to feel like this at 45? It's because I'm on PEDs, by the way.
Yep, 100%.
But to feel this way,
it's not, guys. You can do it without PEDs.
Easy for you to say.
Do it without PEDs.
There's some motherfucker who's really going to be like, God damn it.
Kids, you can be just like me.
Dog, when he said, I don't want to grow up, immediately in my head, I was like, I'm a Toys R Us kid.
Yeah.
You remember that jingle?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, it feels fucking great to move. And if movement is your stress mitigator, then you are most likely to be you're less likely to be sucked into just a lot of time wasting, like drinking and partying and that kind of stuff. It can be great. I understand for relaxation purposes and entertainment purposes, there's a place for all these things. But sometimes, especially when you're younger, you can get sucked into those things and start to do way too much of it. And we've talked a bunch of times on the show how we don't feel like we have great control with certain things. And so if we went down that path, that might be another thing where we're not able to show like good enough discretion to be able to come back out of it easily enough to be able to do the other things that we love to do.
My son is crazy. So he's, he'll be 2 in January, but in regards to like kids moving, so it's like we're trying to go to bed. He's falling out. He's starting to go to sleep. And he's like, nope. And he gets up and he starts jumping on the bed, like full energy. And I'm like, meanwhile, I'm having a hard time staying awake. And I'm like, how does he do this? You know, he's checking out for the day. You know, he's literally, his like eyes are falling. And then all of a sudden he's just like, oh wait, no, I want to jump on the bed right now. And he starts jumping hard, like, you know, and then he's learned how to jump up and tuck his knees in or legs in. So he lands on his knees and he thinks it's hilarious. I'm like, dude, how do you have all this energy all of a sudden out of nowhere? I'm like, damn, I could never do that. You know, just thinking like I'm already falling asleep. I can't get up and go do jumping jacks right now. That's be so hard. But he does it like nothing. And I'm like, damn, that's special. You know, it's freaking cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to help put a kid to sleep like that. Like it's
impossible.
It's hard to describe to somebody that's like not a parent or doesn't have a kid. But it is, yeah. They get like
just
hyped
like saying
up.
crate, and they go in their crate and go to sleep.
Yeah,
you know. Well, parents will. A lot of parents have different strategies. There's like a cry it out strategy where you just stick your kid in a crib and you
walk away.
Yeah, you close the door and walk away. I was never really able to do that. Nope, that was too hard. But I remember putting Quinn to sleep when she was a kid, and she would always be excited at bedtime. So she would like tell me a story or. She always, I think I told you, Andrew, she'd say, tell me what to dream about. And then whatever yeah, I know, it was so cute. Whatever I had for her to dream about was never good. She was like, I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good in her mind. So she'd be like, nah, I don't want to dream about that.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was like, I don't know. How about you dream about it's Christmas and like, I don't know, you wake up and there's like a super cool surprise underneath the tree or something. I don't know. I have no idea what the fuck she wants.
Shit out there.
Yeah, just throwing stuff out there. She's like, no. And and then she's like, give me another, you know. And I'm like, well, why don't you pick, you know? And then of course she would pick something to, you know, that she would think was good, and then we'd go back and forth. But we would always be laughing, and Andy would always come by, and she's like, what are you doing? You're getting her like all hyped up. And so then Quinn and I's thing was like, let's laugh enough to make mom mad, like see if we can get her to like come out of her room. Yeah. And so Quinn always loved that. And then sure enough, like 10 minutes later, she'd like fall asleep. But I had to be like touching her leg or like super close to her. She had to like know I was there.
Oh,
I mean, I could have. we could have just been more disciplined and let her fucking figure her sleep out on her own. But I'm too much of a bitch, so I would just stay right there by her side. And then I tried to sneak out, and I got this ankle that makes this crazy pop. And so I'm trying to tiptoe out of there, and I'm like, I'm 300 pounds too at the time, so I'm like tippy-toeing out of there.
Snap.
And the ankle just goes whoosh, and I'm like, oh. And then I hear her go, she starts crying. I'm like, oh, shit. That was when she was a baby. But
Oh, man.
Yeah, my son's the same way. He'll roll over, and I just need to be there, like, touch his hand, touch his head, whatever, touch his back. But the same thing, I'll wake up in the morning, try to sneak out, and like, fuck, like, crack, like, damn it, that's tough.
My kids are great, I just
Tell them to sit.
I put them in their little boxes and they go to sleep. I wake up and I just put them outside and they go run around and play, and I feed them real quick in the morning. And
I'm
I have to
sure
feed
that
them
would
again.
definitely
They're such good
work.
kids. I have 3 of them too, so I don't know what you guys are stressing about.
Struggling, struggle
Anyway,
city. Yeah. Back to his name was Danny Brown. He had said something about like you can't play unless you do grow up first, and then you can kind of go back to playing. And so my thing was, okay, who do you think? It's kind of obvious the answer, but like, who do you think is actually happier? The starving artist that just says, I'm not going to ever get a real job, don't really care how much money I make, I'm going to do what I love to do. Or the other guy that wants to be the artist, but then is like, I got to go make money and then I'll come back to it. And they both end up doing the same thing. They both end up creating whatever art that they want on their terms. One happens to have done it from the get-go and never had the stress of clocking in and out. The other had to deal with the stress, but now maybe they have a little bit more comfort with having some money in the bank and they still get to do what they do. Which path do you think might end up being happier?
That's a tough call.
Yeah,
it's a tough call. I think, and that's what I think, we have to be careful. It's very easy to be judgmental and to judge other people's lifestyle and say, man, that doesn't look like a good way to live, but maybe it is a good way to live for somebody. Maybe they really love being organized and they love having their 9 to 5 because it allows them to, I guess, fill in the blanks. There's so many aspects of life that go beyond, just your career and how you're making money and how you're spending your time. That your relationships and stuff like that are huge. So those would all be big factors. I think it's a romantic story to say like the starving artist is going to have like the better life because he's, passionate about it. But there's a lot of people that are in those situations where that can be really maddening for some people. I've seen it on both sides where I've seen depression from people on both sides where they are organized and meticulous and they get the college degree and they get the job and they maybe do go back and do the thing that they loved. But I've kind of seen it on both sides where it seems like both sides can be happy and both sides could be stressed out.
You just got to make sure you're going to get good. You do need time to get good at something where it makes sense if you've been doing it for a while. If you were lucky enough to start whatever that art form is when you were younger, right? It gives you a heads up. But if you're starting something in your 20s, something new that you want to get really good at, right? It's going to be hard to get noticed in something if you're not good, if you're not skilled, if you're not close to where some of the better people are. And if you need that time to get good, then
you'll feel great if you're good.
You'll feel great if you're good, right? So that shit takes time, and people need money. So, I'm always in the ballpark of like, have some way to make some money so that you can give yourself some freedom to head towards that goal. You need to make money somehow.
Yeah, if you're learning stuff and you're getting good at stuff, you should be able to leverage that.
Yeah.
There should be a way to leverage it. If you want to be an actor and it's just not working out, as we said, you might have to take a sidestep, and maybe your sidestep is to teach. Maybe you start teaching acting classes, or maybe you do some online classes, or you figure out something that's maybe within that realm. We've seen people do all kinds of stuff where maybe the person that's acting just gets tired of not getting roles, and they just start to blog or film their own stuff. And maybe through that process, they start to learn about editing. Maybe they get a gig as an editor, and maybe they get on the set of a show, and then and they say, well, I'm actually started out as an actor, right? And you hear these stories a lot, and you're like, holy fuck, that's fascinating how that guy got that job.
Kanye. I mean, I know people are giving that man heat right now, and rightfully so. But like, the man did start off as like a beat maker and producer, but he was always like, I'm a rapper.
Oh yeah.
But I'm a rapper.
I'm a producer rapper.
But just wait until you hear me rap. And that was a lot of his shit for a while. And then when he was finally able to rap, people were like, oh shit. Okay,
mayonnaise colored Benz, I push miracle whips.
Right. You got to. Okay, 2 documentaries. Watch the Ye documentary on Netflix. Have you guys started watching the Shaq documentary on HBO?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I love Shaq though.
It's so good.
Can't wait.
Oh man, the first episode's out. That shit was really good. Got me hyped. It's really good. Yeah, Shaq also had Osgood Slaughter. Hey, all the great ones have Osgood Slaughter.
Yes, we did. Eventually.
Shaq is, I don't know, Shaq just seems like the coolest professional athlete that ever lived.
Dude, yeah, and I think he is. He is. At least they're making it seem that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's breakdancing and shit.
Yeah. He was actually,
big ass dude breakdancing, yeah.
He was a decent rapper too. Man, Shaq.
Oh, yeah.
Yo, you guys need to go watch that documentary.
I remember seeing one time he's like, check this out. I'm going to breakdance. And like he went to like get down, like spin on the ground or something, but like the ground and like what he was wearing like didn't go together very well. So he didn't spin very much. And the guy that was like filming it or whatever, he's like, that wasn't really much of breakdance. And Shaq's like, get out of here. And he's just like laughing. Yeah. He just seemed like he's having such a good time all the time.
Yeah. Shaq, RZA, and Method Man have one of the dopest tracks ever. RZA made the most ridiculous beat, and then Method Man, of course, rapping on it. And then, of course, Shaq did his thing, but it's one of the dopest songs ever. It's called No Hooks. Highly recommend it. It's so sick. Yeah.
Shaq's in pretty good shape right now, too. Didn't he get like kind of jacked?
From the last picture,
those vitamins, right, or whatever he was selling.
I don't know what it was called, but yeah, he looked pretty yoked for a 7-footer though, man. Like he's kept in good shape post NBA because you see like Barkley and all these other cats like kind of gained some weight, but Shaq I think he's gotten in better shape since he was actually on the Heat. Like he's not as god dang, man, as a 7-footer.
It's got to be complicated being Shaq. I would imagine like some of the stuff that like him and Kobe went through years ago, it probably sits with him quite a bit because I think Kobe always wanted him to be just like just in a little bit better shape. He probably just always wanted him to be in just a little bit better shape. The Shaq's like, we're winning championships.
I'm looking forward. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that next episode, man, because in the first episode, in the first episode, he talked about how like when he was on the Magic, and even when he went to the Lakers, like everyone was like, "This is the guy." And you've always heard him and Kobe talk about how like, well, Kobe wants to be the guy, Shaq wants to be the guy, and like you have 2 of the guys, right? So I think that episode 2 is going to be dope. It's going to be really cool because he's a hell of a personality.
Andrew, how did you go back and start to do the thing that you loved? How did it happen?
Oh man. Okay, so long story short, every time I picked up a camera, I thought it was the coolest fucking thing ever. And I always just loved it. And
you got a particular brand and style.
That Fujifilm cameras are the absolute best for photography. I know Sony does a lot of cool shit with video, but we're talking about photos.
And the other ones, they're all bullshit, right?
If you like pressing a lot of buttons to get to where you got to go, then they're great.
I like how frustrated he gets about it.
I know, I get all fired up. No, but anyway, so like I did the thing where I got to go to college and I hated it. I got to get a job. I very much dislike it too. But again, I always liked messing with the camera. So I picked up a video camera because I wanted to make drifting videos. Okay, so like I was into drifting, and then my car broke down and a whole bunch of other shit happened, but I still wanted to be a part of the sport, the motorsport. So I was like, oh, well, there's nobody making videos right now. Maybe I can, shoot over there and I don't know, just put some cool shit out on Vimeo because YouTube would block your music, and I wanted to use music I wanted to use. So I uploaded shit to Vimeo, and people were really, really digging everything I was doing. And it was just really cool to see like a whole community like your shit. And then they'll like, oh, you're the guy. Like, yes, like, this is really cool. And then eventually I started actually like Nsima, if you were coming to an event, you would reach out to me and I would specifically cut a highlight reel for you. So that way you could send to potential sponsors to help try to cut costs and make shit possible.
And at the time you have a regular job.
Yes. Yeah. I've had a regular, so my first job was like at 16 years old, like part-time. And then from there, I just kind of always had shitty job to shitty job. But then early 20s, I started getting more stable jobs. But during this whole time, I had my regular job that was 40 hours a week, no overtime. Well, sometimes, but I could clock out and be done.
It's a state job, right? Like working medical records or something like that?
Eventually, yeah. So at that time, I might have even, I worked at a gas station for a little while. And then I worked for a company that would manage body shop inventory. So like if this company or this body shop needed a certain paint, I would go deliver it, or I would make sure they never ran out of it. It was very annoying because you're dealing with a lot of moving money and everyone's cheaper than the next guy. And so when you tell them, oh, it's going to cost this much, they would be like, oh, can we do a little side deal or something? And be like, dude, I can't. Like, I'll get fired or whatever. So anyway, I was always around cars. And of course, growing up, I was always around cars. And naturally, I started fucking around with cars. So I was working full time. And then, like I said, started kind of charging people a little bit for side gigs during drifting events and stuff. And then eventually I met somebody that had a small little rap crew. And I was like, oh, dude, it'd be fun to like film a rap video of you guys. And then so that kind of the exact same thing happened where somebody was like, oh shit, like who made this video? And it's like, oh, it was this guy. And then it's like, oh, can he do ours? Can he do ours? Unsigned artists are broke. So I never made any money with that at all. And so that didn't sit well with my ex-wife at the time because she's just like, you're wasting all your time here. You need to actually go get paid doing something. And then so that was always like a hard back and forth clash because I loved doing it. And I'm like, well, I'm working and I'm making money. Like, let me just go do this. So I didn't really have the support. But eventually that relationship ended and I switched my camera over to stills. You know, I ended up getting a better camera that can do both audio, video and photography. Then I met my wife who's super supportive. And so she pushed me to actually start like taking on clients to do photos, all while still working full-time jobs. Every second I was not working at the day job, I was working on photography. So I went to YouTube University, Creative Live, a lot of that stuff to where I would still be just totally entrenched in photography while still having my regular job, where that's where I was saying earlier, I felt like I was just meant for something way more. And I felt like this could potentially be it. Because I remember I delivered images to somebody and they started crying because they were like, holy shit, like I have this forever now, you know? And it's like, I've been contacted by a lot of people saying like, thank you for these portraits. So-and-so has died and this is actually what we used for like their funeral image. And it's just like, oh shit, like that's very powerful. Right. So I always wanted to make an impact and I felt through my photos, I was able to do that. And then, you know, of course, just trying multiple ways of trying to make like side money for that, just to be like, dude, I think I might actually be able to do this full time. There was a Joe Rogan episode where he was basically laying out my whole life where he's like, somebody in a cubicle right now is listening and they hate their job and they want to be doing so much more. And I was like, dude, that's totally me. Like I need to get serious about this. Even longer story short, met Mark at a seminar, offered my photography skills. He gave me a shot.
Stephanie told you to go to.
Yes, I know, dude.
Right?
I know.
So that's that support right there.
I'm trying to shorten it up, but basically, okay. Stephanie was following Ashley Horner. Ashley Horner is going to be at Super Training. So my wife, Stephanie, wanted to go for Ashley, and I was like, oh shit, Super Training. I want to go there too. We went, cornered Mark. I was just like, hey, dude, like, do powerlifters need photos taken? He's like, no, but I need a photographer. I was like, oh shit. So then started working at Super Training, just kind of like getting the experience. Didn't ask about money or anything, but just trying to prove my value to Mark and everything. And then slowly but surely, Mark offered me a full-time job. That was fantastic. And then the rest is history. But that's how it happened. Is I was working full-time, and then every second outside of the job, every second I had, I was working towards my photography career, trying to build something there. And, you know, literally everything from the website to business cards to obviously learning how to be a photographer.
You had your own website.
Yeah. I did, yeah. And
which made it easy for me to view the pictures when you were like, oh, they're uploaded here, you know, and I was like, oh, that's like all those little things, like they seem like little things, but they're big things in the end, because you know, if you send me some fucking computer file that takes forever for me to download or whatever, you know what I mean, like this. The stuff that you probably people don't really look at as a big deal can end up being a huge deal.
Yeah, and it was funny because I'd be on this website builder trying to make it look nice, like up till like 4 a.m, and it's like, dude, I got to wake up in 2 hours. But I'm like, no, somebody's going to come across this and they're going to hire me as their wedding photographer or whatever. It's like no one ever did, but all that work was meant for that one time that you went to the website and, you know, be like, oh, he actually knows what he's doing. And on that note, I remember my daughter asking me, like, how did you figure out how to build a website? I was like, I figured it out on my own. And she's like, no one taught you? I was like, no. Like, no one's gonna do the hard shit for you. You have to figure it out on your own. And I just remember her eyes got all big and she's just like, whoa, like you don't know how to make websites though. I'm like, no, I don't. I had to figure it out in that moment. So as a entrepreneur, or especially as a full-time photographer, you have to wear many, many hats. And I'm grateful for that, because when I came to super training, I was doing a lot of different things. It wasn't, right, we joke around like, oh, you thought you were just going to be a photographer. And then I was doing videos, and then thankfully we got actual graphic designers, because I was making flyers and shit. They were always terrible. But you come in and you're just like, you're comfortable with having to do a lot of shit outside of your thing. But to kind of get back to the whole topic is, you know, I was just working as much as I could on my skill set. So that way when the opportunity did come, I was prepared to say, yes, Mark, I can do this full time.
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's tons of stuff that like are missing out, but I'm trying to like rush through it as quick as possible. You know, and it's funny because like I remember one of my buddies that was a rapper was like, yeah, like, because I loved their music. And he was just like, yeah, we're pretty good, but if anyone's going to make it, it's going to be you. And when I heard that, I was like, the fuck makes you say that? He's like, you're just way better than anything or anybody, any of us will ever be able to do. I was like, oh shit. Like, that's crazy. Like, that was like the first like big compliment I ever received. I was like, damn, that's wild.
Like, why are you shoving all the responsibility on me?
I know, right? Like, damn, I got to make it for everybody. So that's funny. And then the biggest guy I worked with, we actually had him on the podcast, was Stickman from Dead Prez. So that was a pretty cool video to shoot in Oakland. But yeah, rappers didn't pay much money.
But I think a cool thing there is like, you remember that compliment from that dude.
Yeah.
Right? You like those little things are things that like make people continue to head down the road that they're heading. Right?
Oh yeah.
So like it's, if you're someone and you're doing something, it's great if you have support. It always helps if you have support. But if you can support somebody else by sending them a text, or I don't know, giving them a quick call, or leaving them a fucking comment, like you see that they're working at it, to be supportive, that's a pretty big deal, because I see quite a few people who are like, who kind of mention, like, let's say they're new to doing something, and I see a lot of people say like, oh, I'm doing this, but the people closest to me don't support me, or they don't send me anything. And you don't always need somebody to pat you on the back, but it is nice when it happens. It's nice when someone's like, dude, I see what you're doing, just keep heading. Like it gives motivation. So if you can be that to somebody, that is a big deal, even if you don't have somebody to be that for you. Yeah. Right. So
yeah. And during that whole time, you know, I was in my early to eventually late 20s during this whole journey. So I was already living on my own, again, already working full-time, making full-time money. So my parents weren't, it's not that they didn't support me, but they were like, well, you're your own man. You're going to do whatever the fuck you do. And my ex was not too, I mean, she wasn't like really down on me or anything. She was just more like, you can't do this forever. Like, you know, kind of like, you can't play video games, you know, as a career.
Yeah.
You can't be making videos as a career. And so like, again, it wasn't like super negative, but it was like, like, damn, do I have a shot at this? But I loved it so much, I didn't care. Thankfully, the one time where I like believed that I could actually do something with it, I trusted myself. there's been many times where I'm like, oh no, I'm the piece of shit that my high school teacher told me I was going to be. So I'm not going to pursue whatever it is. But for some reason, creating content was like, oh my God. Like, I just remember like when I would, make an edit and it would land on the perfect beat or the perfect lyric or whatever it was. And I would just be like, oh shit. Like, I'd get so fired up because it'd be super late and I can't like make a lot of noise, but I would just be like, oh fuck, I can't wait for people to watch this. It was like the coolest thing. And then watching like the views come in or whatever, even when I started doing stuff for super training, like saying like, oh my God, like this has, 5,000 views. And then it's like, weeks would pass. I'm like, oh my God, it has 50,000 views. Like it's special. And like that stuff it still gets me super fired up. I love that stuff.
Thanks for sharing that with us. Take us on out of here, Andrew.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. For everything podcast related, just head over to powerproject.live. Links to them down in the description and the YouTube description and iTunes show notes, all that good stuff. But make sure you guys are following the podcast at MB Power Project on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. My Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z. And Nsima, where you at?
Devil Pussy Mug. And Nsima Inyang on Instagram, YouTube, and Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. And this is at powerproject.live. Mark, what's your smelly tip, dude?
Oh, yeah.
Smelly tips. Set your timer on your phone or on something that you can see while you're doing a set, and see if you can do a set for a minute or two. It's just been something I've been playing with a little bit more recently. Some of the twisty, weird things that I've been doing, I sometimes will just set the clock for that and try to do it for 2 minutes. Kelly Starrett has mentioned doing stuff for 2 minutes for a long ass time in terms of like myofascial release and stuff like that. But I found it to be kind of fun while I'm doing a set of incline bench or some of these weird twisty moves that I've been doing. So give that a shot. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.